Hey guys, this is Mercedes with Trim Podcast. Okay, Dill. Hey guys, this is Mercedes with Trim Podcast. I'm super excited to announce my guest today. He's freaking super awesome. You can't tell, but his wife's actually here with us too. She's also awesome. We'll have to get her in a podcast one day for sure. I'm going to let him introduce himself. I'm sure everyone knows him, but will you go ahead and introduce yourself for us?
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is Shep. I am a local hairdresser. I'm born and raised here in Utah. I've owned a hair salon in Provo called Shep Studio for the last 23 years. And I really love the hair industry, and I'm also a global educator for R&Co, which is a product company. So I really enjoy traveling around and teaching for them. And what else do you want to know? Is there anything specific?
Oh, there's so much I want to know. Okay, so the first thing, so you started out, was barber school a thing when you started, or was it just Cosmo was a thing?
Kind of Cosmo, and barbering was kind of something that was added into that, but it wasn't a specific thing. In fact, I think the whole barber thing has really come about, and I don't know, you'd know better than I, but probably the last 10 or 15 years.
When I was going to school, there really wasn't barber schools. I went to Cosmo school, so I only practiced barbering, but there wasn't barber. Maybe there was, but I just don't remember it being a thing.
Not like it is now.
Yeah.
I think it's even, growing up, I went to a barber, but it wasn't the barber experience that it is, that you guys provide.
Yeah, it was
right?
flat top, high
service,
and top, wait in line, crab, No, so you went to Cosmo school. Did you know that you were going to be a business owner, or that you were going to stay in hair, or was it a stepping stone to something else?
So, I actually, if you back up a little bit, in my family, the medical field was kind of the direction that everybody was going. And so that's where I kind of headed, and I was starting out in nursing, and I'd been accepted to the program. And then I was dating a hairdresser. It wasn't my Tracy, but I was dating a hairdresser, and growing up and going to a barber, and it wasn't just a barber, it was a guy in his basement. And, my dad really thought that salons were for women and barbershops were for men. And so, we went to the barber, and it was a 10-minute experience where he sprayed your hair down and, went through all of that.
Yeah.
And so it just never was impactful for me. But when I was dating this hairdresser, I really saw, the industry for kind of more what it was, something really fun and connection and creative and all of that, and so it kind of piqued my interest. And ultimately that's how I ended up being a hairdresser. But I didn't know in the beginning that I was going to own a salon.
You didn't? That you weren't I'm going to be a business owner?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the goal. I actually wanted to work in a big city and
I believe that.
Be a top hairdresser.
Yeah.
And so I did. I moved to Atlanta. I worked in a salon called Van Michael. It's a really big salon. It's one of the top salons in the country. And
is it still open?
Oh yeah, it's a big salon. They at one point they had about 500 employees, and just a really good training program. In fact, I would say that a lot of the business acumen that I learned was really from working there, because everything was very systems driven. It was very experience focused and things like that. And so
probably really cultivated who you are today. Completely. That experience.
Yeah, had a big impact for sure. And then, as you know, Mercedes, so much of business is trial and error.
Yeah.
And I'm still trial and erroring.
Yes.
23 years later.
Is that how long? So is that how long you've been cutting hair? How long have you owned Shep's?
So I graduated school in 1997, and then we opened the salon August 8th, 2001.
Wow.
So
23 years.
And it's interesting actually, because a lot of our team wasn't even born when we opened the salon.
Yeah.
So that always feels kind of crazy for sure.
I think about that like as time goes on. Like right now I'm still young, but eventually I'm going to get older, and all my barbers have always been younger. So it's like I think one day I'll be looking back and being like, y'all are just so young. Like I'm like old in here cutting hair still. Okay, so I kind of previously asked you this. So when I never also wanted to open a shop either, like that. And I'm not saying that I don't love my shop. I'm just saying it was never like I can't wait to be a business owner. I didn't even really know what that meant or anything. It's just it kind of happened, fell in place, etc. But I felt a ton of pressure of like, when's your next location? When's your next location? When's your next? You can't make enough off of your first, etc. And you've been in your one shop, literally perfecting it for 23 years.
Yeah.
Why not another? Let's hear it.
You know what? I honestly, because Tracy and I have talked about that a lot over the years, and certainly we've had people say like, oh, you should open a shop here or there or wherever. But I've seen, and I feel like you've done such an amazing job at that. I don't know that I'm cut from the cloth that could actually handle that, because I feel like sometimes when you do that, each individual shop kind of takes on like a different feel and a different vibe, which is also,
definitely because you're stretching yourself.
Kind of cool. But I think I'm also probably a little too like OCD, where like I like to kind of have a little more control over like the environment.
Yeah.
And make sure that like the guest experience and everything is like really like up to par.
Yeah. No, I know that about you. Like, you're definitely a perfectionist. I actually think we are cut from the same cloth, to be honest. Fellas, for me, was everything. Like, nobody handed me money or the building or anything. Like, I built the Fellas from the ground up, from working there by myself, just like you have. And I have literally slaved in the Fellas every single day. You know, and for me, when I went to go open my second store, I also was a perfectionist. My third store, also a perfectionist. I was no longer even living my life, and I started to get these like really terrible panic attacks because I couldn't like control everything anymore. Because I was growing so fast that like I couldn't control everything and the quality of everything. And Google reviews weren't being responded to in 10 minutes. And this and this and this, like all these things that I used to do. And then I finally just like let go, and I was like, I have to just like let go to be able to grow. But I held on for a really long time too. Like that was one of the hardest things, I for sure. And still to this day, I find myself like, nobody's even swept, and I'm like, I have a manager for this. I got a manager. Like, I got this. It's fine. It's fine. You know. So I totally get that feeling.
I think for me, honestly, it's I realized at some point, and who knows, maybe it would have been the best thing that Tracy and I could have done, but I think to a certain degree it was like fear of letting go.
Oh, for sure.
You know, and
trusting someone else to run your stores.
But we've always like, even when we pulled in your parking lot, we're like, damn, she has her own bus now. Like, I feel like at what, like, there's just, you are not afraid to get out there and just do all of this stuff, and like, I have a ton of respect for that. And then I think our shop is, because we are stayed in one space, like we try to always keep it evolving.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So like if you were there a year ago and you walked in today, it's probably going to look different, or an aspect or element isn't going to be the same. And most of the time when people walk in, they're shocked, like new clients, to know that we've been there for 23 years.
Yeah.
Because we really, it's a creative space. And so it's always been super important that we're always evolving it and keeping it looking like not run down, like like fresh and up to date and all of that.
No, I think that really shows in your shop, just like the quality that you and Tracy have. Like, I remember when I first went to a class, you told me, I said, who freaking cleans this place? And you're like, my wife, every single morning. Every single morning my wife cleans this place. So not only do you and your wife do this together, Tracy doesn't cut hair, right?
Correct.
So you guys still run this business together. You guys two have separate roles. How does that work together? Do you guys do pretty well? Or like, what's probably like the hardest struggle in your guys' marriage when it comes to the business?
All of it.
Okay, I love that.
No, I mean, to be honest, I think that we both possess a different skill set.
Yeah.
And that where she's really strong and the things that she's really great at are things that like I'm not so great at. Like Tracy's very compassionate and she's very like empathetic, and so when team members, and it's not that I don't try to be, it's just that we kind of wear a different hat, right? So when team members like are going through it, they always know that they can come and talk to her, and like she's gonna kind of meet it that way, and deal with it in a really kind way. I also like one thing that's really amazing is she knows our guests at the salon.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that is super cool, because that in your world that you're serving the community.
Yeah.
And you build these really incredible relationships with people. And, I think people always know that when they walk into our space and Tracy's behind the desk, that they're going to be met with somebody that's like really glad that they're there.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel more at home and more welcome. And then, I mean, my gosh, like, I don't know that I could have married another woman that would have been really happy. Well, I think mostly happy to like literally get up at 6 a.m. every single morning and clean the salon.
Mm-mm.
Like it's really insane. And
just shows how much pride she takes in it, just like you do,
Yeah, and so I think the reason it works, and I mean, don't think that we don't have different ideas from time to time and kind of butt heads a little bit about where I think things should go versus like where she thinks things should go. And definitely like one of the challenges is, because we're both heavily involved
and passionate
and passionate, is that when we're going through kind of a rough time as business owners, like it's hard to ever disconnect from that.
Mm-hmm.
So like we're laying in bed at night staring at the ceiling, like just like
who do we hire? Like, did payroll get finished?
What are we going to do to get through this?
Yeah.
And I think that's just real talk about like business ownership.
Yeah. It's true. Like people don't see, like they just see like, my Hellcat or like my buildings or my bus, but like I'm going to go home and cry tonight. It's been like the longest day of my life. Yeah. I'm going to cry, but then I'm going to work again till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll be back up at 6 working. But I'm not going to be like Tracy and cleaning, because you can't pay me to do that. But I will be probably doing some other...
She doesn't get paid. I mean,
don't
kid yourself.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, when people are like, how much do you make? I'm like, if you were to count the hours that I actually put into the shop by the money I made, I'm like, I'm not even sure if it's minimum wage at this point. Like, I'm so serious.
I mean,
and that's the truth.
There's a resilience, and like, if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it.
Right.
And then there's also like, let's hook the trailer up and just drive into the sunset, like, because I think. It is challenging, and the industry is always evolving, and sometimes the direction where it's evolving for somebody like myself who has been in it for a very long time, I kind of struggle with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I know an industry that was different.
Yeah. Well, like I was talking to you before we started this podcast, before we started filming, but I really feel like you've changed the industry, in my opinion. Salons, like, I feel like they're all the same, Like, obviously, they all have, like, they're a little different. Some carry different products. They have different stylists, etc. They all wash hair. They all do blowouts. They all do this. I go to your place. I watch your first class. You take these ladies' bangs, like, just this front section. You take them this short. And I'm, like, freaking out. I'm like, wait, like I think you might have cut them wet, like I'm not even sure. And then you're like, but this piece I'm going to have long. And so it's kind of going to be like a peekaboo, like shortcut. And I thought, like, I've never seen that before. I've never seen anyone do that. That's so crazy. It was the most wild thing I ever seen. Everyone else was talking about it. But you were like just going in and like changing, I feel like the way that salons or the way that people cut, like people don't cut like that. I don't cut like that. I don't know almost anybody who cuts like that except for you. Yeah. And I think that's what's made your place so cool and unique, is like you have adapted to the times. Like you are willing to like break the rules of the norm for salons. You're willing to break it for your clients and customers and guests. And I think you've attracted a really unique set of guests too that are willing to like really own themselves and own their artistic selves or who they want to be. Would you say that really was your clientele who were just like they're willing to change their hair to what they want it to be, not what society said it has to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that we've never really just gone with like what's like
Norm.
like the norm.
For sure.
And I think we've really kind of made our mark because of that. Like people know that we're not afraid. Right now, I mean, honestly, I think there's a lot of hairdressers that are really kind of terrified to actually cut hair.
Yeah.
And especially when somebody wants something that's like a big, huge change or maybe like a little bit more edgy. And honestly, for me, maybe that's the biggest impact that like I feel I want to have on the industry, like moving forward, like kind of the second like half of my career is just helping people develop like more confidence in their work.
Yeah.
So that they like no matter who walks through that door, they kind of know that they can take care of them.
Yeah.
You know, and if they want to chop it from waist length to pixie cut, that they can do that. And I've never really been that afraid of cutting hair, but I think the part that people don't see is that I went through a tremendous amount of training and spent a tremendous amount of money to get to that place so that I could feel that way.
Yeah.
You know?
And like for all you guys watching, Shep actually puts on classes all the time for pretty much free. And honestly, you could reach out to him and he would do it for you. He really does genuinely care about stylists and barbers too. Learning how to do shear work and all of that stuff. So make sure you guys follow him on Instagram or ever reach out and see if you can be a part of his classes because they really are super unique. Like I said, it was life-changing for me. Like I still to this day have never seen anyone cut like you have. It was really incredible. And it wasn't just like you were just like chopping too. It was like you had a method to your madness, which was awesome.
Yeah, I think everything has to be intentional.
Yeah.
Right? Like once you understand how to cut hair, then you can kind of go off and, you know, as long as you're being intentional about it, I think you can get the result that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your daughter works for you now, right? She does hair.
Grace, yeah.
Is she going to take over? What's the plans?
You know what? I honestly think she has no desire.
Oh, I bet she does it.
You know, at least at this point. And I would also say that she never had a desire to be a hairdresser. Like that was dad. That was my dream for her.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't until I stopped harassing her about it that she actually... Grace is very creative. Like
did she apprentice underneath you?
She did.
That's amazing.
It was her senior year in high school, and she apprenticed, and so she's now 23, and she's just... I couldn't be more proud of her. Like, she's super busy, and she does beautiful work, but she's also blossomed into this amazing, like, communicator and friend builder, and like she's just really great with clients of like all ages.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you had to like almost fire her or like write her up?
I fired her 7 times. And
you have to tell us
like,
one firing.
Literally, like I chased her to her car once.
You're like, you're done.
And she got in, and I literally went like that.
You're done.
And then she showed up the next day.
She's like, I'm here.
So there's probably some advantages to like working, because I would go home and before I even opened the door of the house, she had already called her, Tracy, and they were already talking about it. And of course, Tracy always took Grace's side.
Yeah, she's like, your ass is grass. You're done.
But you know what? Like, I think I've looked at it through her lens as well, and like, I don't think that it would be easy to work with or for your parents.
Yeah.
And I think that she has something unique that way, that because even like working in our salon, like it even, because we're the owners and she's our child, it even puts her kind of in a different position with the rest of the team. And I think sometimes, like, just in a vulnerable sense, that she kind of struggles, like like that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
And so that, we think about that because at the end of the day, it's pretty hard to have conversations with the boss's daughter.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to have a real raw conversation because she's tied to it in a different way than anybody else.
Yeah. So I apprenticed my 21-year-old, my 14-year-old, she's 15 now, actually, she just turned 15 last week, and my 10-year-old. So they're all barber
awesome.
for me.
That's
and my 21-year-old, firing her was the best thing that ever happened to me. I actually fired her. She left. She went and worked at a gas station. She hated it. She came back and she was like, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for everything. Like, I didn't realize how good I had it. But then she does struggle with the same thing here too, where like, people will say that she has like favoritism, but if anything, I'm harder on her than I am on anyone else because for me, I'm like, I trained you. I know you know better than this. I know you know better. So I do hold her, I think, more accountable than I do others because she's my daughter and I want more for her and I trained her.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate to you as far as like apprenticing, firing children, that it is hard. And I think the barbers do kind of look at her like, well, how would it be to have like your parents? I'm like, yep, I think she might make the least here. like, well, and so I'm like, she really, at the end of the day, like she does not get it better than anybody. If anything, it's harder. Cause like when she does bad here, like that shit goes home with us. And I'm like, you screwed up. Like, when they get in trouble here, it leaves. And when I leave, it leaves, but it comes home with her when it comes home. So no, I can totally agree with that. Like, I think people don't realize, just how hard it is to have like your kid working for you, and it's not as easy or as cush as maybe people make it out to be. So
I mean, you're invested in everything, and like I remember in the beginning, like I even just like I care about the work that everybody does, and like if there's a guest that like isn't happy with something. But, like, it was always especially hard if it was something that, like, Grace did.
Yeah.
Because I'm her dad.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah.
But ultimately, like, honestly, it's been, like, a huge... I think there is and will continue to be some, like, challenges with a family business. But I think for our family, like, we've really kind of found our footing and... figured out like how to make it work.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing is, okay, so you love education. What made you not start like a grooming line or like a school? Because I feel like you would have killed it owning a school. You still would. Yeah. But what made you not maybe go in a direction of another salon, but maybe in the direction of hair care or education, as far as like opening something that would bring profit for you like that?
So I've actually had a lot of people over the years say, you have such a kind of cool, unique name that would translate really well in like a grooming line.
Yes.
I think my challenge with that, and again, I look, even just looking like you have all this stuff, you have everything, you even have hats. But for me, I think the big thing is just simply that I feel that there's a lot of pretty great hair care brands out there, especially like the kind of top tier brands, and they have budgets that far exceed like what I could ever like afford to pay to start a brand.
Right.
And so that kind of has a lot to do with it. Like,
yeah.
If I felt like there was something missing in the industry, like I would probably do something there. As far as the school goes, I actually really, really love teaching.
Yeah.
Like teaching something that is like just a huge passion of mine, and I'll be honest, like it's kind of for selfish reasons because when I teach, I probably grow the most.
Yeah.
And I think like prepping for classes and like I spend a lot of time in the early mornings in the salon just cutting mannequin heads, and this year I picked up a curling iron for the first time in my entire career and started like playing around with different modern ways of like putting like movement and that in the hair and but I really love teaching, but I don't know that I would want to do something that's like kind of regulated by the government.
That's
I mean,
yeah.
To be honest with you,
I looked into opening a school, so yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about for sure.
Yeah,
It's an absolute
that's
nightmare.
The tough thing is like when they're heavy-handed in like what's going on, and like the money part of it is kind of tied to that. Like I just don't know that appeals to me. But we've always really tried to like have great education and also super affordable. You know, there's a lot of people
Super
that are out
affordable.
there charging like so much money for classes, and I believe that education should be affordable such that like it's in the grasp of like everybody,
Yeah.
you know. Even people that are just starting out. I mean, we do these evening classes, they're $30, and you know, we have no problem usually like filling them. But to me, it's more than just the education. It's just getting a room full of hairdressers together is super fun, and just seeing people connect. It's like that event I came to here.
Yeah.
You know, when you had the barbers, and like really what you're doing is you're bringing community together, and like you're helping build like other kind of, you're helping people meet and connect with other people in the industry.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. Being like such a perfectionist and like maybe you could say like controlling, like just really like tight knit. Do you have any regrets of that over your life as a business owner because of those reasons?
So I'm gonna die young. You know, like I mean, I hope not, but like I do think, and like maybe Tracy too, I think to care at a certain level, like it obviously takes something away from you.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And yet it's so innate, like in my being, that I don't even know that I have the capacity to be any other way.
Right.
You know, I probably need like therapy, to be honest, like or like
we all do.
or like pills or something.
Drugs.
because yeah, I would say, you know, there's been some tough stuff, and I know that I feel like I haven't always been like the easiest person to work for, and yet I also feel at the same time that anybody that's worked for me is better because of it.
I agree.
And
I agree.
And they're stronger, and like, you know, like I look at them day one, and then I look at them a year in, and for however long they're there, and like I think that they are definitely not the person that they started.
Yeah. I love that you're saying this because like people ask me like, do you get mad when people leave your place and open up their own shop? I'm like, no, I feel proud. Yeah. I feel proud that this place made you feel so confident and got you to a level to where you could go to do your own thing. Yeah. That's so cool. Like that to me is like one of the ultimate compliments, honestly. A lot of the times we haven't left on good terms, but it does still make me feel really good to know that like this was the place they left and was able to, you know, have that, and to be able to go to that.
Can I say one thing about that really fast?
Yeah.
You know, I think when you say like haven't left on good terms, you know, I don't think that people always appreciate that. Like, of course, like as owners, we want like what's best for people, for like stylists, for people, and I have so much gratitude because our company, 23 years in, there's no way that we would be who we are without all of the people that have been part of it,
right?
Like in the past. But I will, in a very vulnerable sense, admit that to me, one of the saddest things, and maybe like will go down as like one of the things I regret the most, is that a lot of, and not all for sure, but there's definitely been more people than I would like that have left, that not only was it kind of not on good terms, but the point where like you're not even friends anymore.
Yeah, me too.
And that's painful.
It's super painful.
Honest, because I think, again, that's something that people don't talk about a lot. But like I care and cared tremendously about those people. And then I'm also running a business that I love with standards and expectations that are really important.
That is a really hard thing. Like for me, like when people leave you and it's like it's hard because it's like when they were working for me, like I felt like we were like super tight knit and we were super close and like they were my people and like I took care of them. But the second I wasn't benefiting their life anymore, it was like they had to tell themselves that like I was the worst person on this planet. And not only tell themselves, but I mean, like I've had my shit burned on social media, you know, and like all over. It went freaking, you know, viral. I've had multiple bad reviews from bad barbers, you know, and there's just all sorts of hate. And it is really, truly heartbreaking because the people who have left, I would have done anything for. And then there's some I wouldn't have, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, that is, I'm really glad that you like touched on that because that one I feel really, really heavy too. So when a person walks into this barbershop at the Fellas, they say, it's always one of the boys, right? Like they come up to the boys and they're like, do you own this shop? And they're like, no, I don't own it. And I never felt, nobody's ever walked up to me and said like, do you own it? Like every single time they walk up to one of the boys and they say like, do you own it? And they're like, no, she does. And they're like, you own this? And I'm like, please, I own all of them, all of them. And they look at me in just complete shock every time. Opposite, does anyone actually come up to you? Well, I guess you've opened them for 23 years, but was there a phase or maybe still a phase of time where people goes up to maybe Tracy? Well, I guess she owns it too. So maybe Grace or anyone else maybe in there that's a girl that's like, do you own it? Like, is this your place?
You know, probably one of the big fundamental differences is that my name's on the building.
Yeah, that's a big one.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think people just know that I own it, but man, there's a lot of times I wish I didn't put my name on the building.
Yeah.
You know, and because there's obviously some challenges with that, but I would bet that they don't look at you with such shock as more like kind of admiration.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like, because the reality is I think people know what it takes. A lot of people know what it takes to like own a business, and it's pretty amazing what you've done.
Thank you.
You know, so, and I mean, kind of live in a time where, you know, I mean, obviously, if you want to get into the weeds with it, in the early 1900s, women were pretty oppressed. Yeah. And in 2023, there's a lot of opportunity, and women are doing like really incredible things. Yeah. And I think like society is looking to women as leaders more as they always should have. But I think that's really, really cool. And it is really unique that as a female you own a barbershop, and as a man, you know, as a male I own a hair salon. There's probably something, you know,
well, I think we bring like uniqueness. Yeah, because like they're like, that's crazy that you run like a male dominant industry business and you run a woman dominant industry business. But I think I bring like more love and softness to the barber side and more of the gentleman side of a barber shop and more of the like, no, we clean our stuff. And I think as a guy, like you kind of bring into like, no, like I'm breaking the rules. Like, you know, we're both breaking the rules. I think that for both of us, like we both just take pride in the places that we have. I think like me growing more, like I'm stretched so thin now that it's like, now I see barbers popping up on our books that I haven't even met yet that work for me. And I'm like, oh no, you know, this was like one day at one point I was like, that's never going to happen to me. And now I'm like, it's happening, you know, I'm like, who is this person? I've got to go meet them.
Which is super cool to me because that means that you weren't the one that had to do all the interviewing and hiring, you know. And then
someone gets fired, I'm like, oh no.
That, you know, like we're still just like everything at the business we do. So again, just major kudos for like even like having the courage to like, you know, turn some of those responsibilities over to like other people. I think that's really awesome.
It's super scary, but yeah, no, and I just keep telling myself like I kind of want now everyone to have like a piece of the Fellas. Like I love it so much. Yeah. So I only partner with barbers who have worked for me, And that's how we've expanded, is our partners are barbers that's worked for us, and then they've gone and opened their own shops. So we've kept it within like the Fellas family. But
That's cool.
For me, like, I loved the Fellas so much, and it changed my life. I knew it would like change other people's lives, and it has. Like those barbers that have came to me and that we've partnered together and I've trusted and we've opened those shops together, like those people, like they get to have that same life that I have and that same true love for something that I deeply love too. So it's like we're almost like sharing. There's just a lot of love. There's a lot of love for the Fellas within all these shops.
I know some of those guys, and like I remember when they even just graduated hair school. And I think just the opportunity that you've given them to like realize a bigger dream through your company is really cool.
It's been really unique and different, and like nothing I ever thought that was like going to be possible either. So do you think that you'll continue on with like R&Co and like do still some of that side? Like where is your future going to take you? Like where are you going to go? Are you going to cut hair till you die? Like what are you going to do?
I mean, Tracy and I talk about it, she's ready to retire now.
That 6 a.m. cleaning is just killing her.
You know what? I love my job.
Yeah.
I sincerely love my job. Of course, there's aspects of it that I don't always love. But, like, I love being a hairdresser and, like, being, behind the chair basically full-time as a hairdresser.
You are working full-time?
I'm behind the chair. I see... I work behind the chair about 30 hours a week.
Wow.
Or a little more. And then with all the teaching and classes and like all of the things, but we mow our own lawn, we wash our own windows, like we take care of our space. It's a very, very full-time job. But I just see myself, I mean, as long as I'm healthy and alive, I don't see myself like really doing anything else. Maybe at some point traveling a little bit more.
Yeah.
Would be nice.
What would you tell Gracie? Like, what's your advice to her? Is your advice to go open a salon? What's your advice to her in this future of being a cosmetologist and being a hairstylist? What is your advice?
I keep feeling like I kind of came into this at the most like beautiful time of the industry. It's obviously changing a ton. There's a lot of different models and things that didn't even exist for so many years. I think it's harder to own a salon now. Probably harder than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Even like longevity wise, like, there's a lot of like quick turnover and things like that. But I also have a lot of faith in the industry that there may be certain elements of it that people will start to miss.
Yeah.
And things will kind of come back around because we're social creatures.
Yeah.
That's the biggest part of what we do, and we like to be with the crowd and things like that. And I don't think there's anything more amazing than like a busy, like, the barbershop, just when it's busy and buzzing and like all the conversations and people laughing and just having a great time. Like, it's such a cool business to be in.
I totally agree. So do you think Gracie will open her own location or don't know?
I mean, I don't. Grace could do a million things. Like, she might be making like handbags one day. Or
we'll find out.
Like, she really is like extremely talented, and like my hope for Grace is that she does whatever her little heart, like wherever it kind of leads her. But I definitely love like having her at the salon and working with her, and it's really amazing.
Yeah, no, that really is awesome. What would you say to like people who are graduating from cosmetology school right now, like, and being who you are, and everyone who does know you, like, what would your advice be to them? What should they do now?
I think
they're
my
graduating.
biggest advice is, first of all, I still just believe that once you graduate, you're just at the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
Like, I think sometimes you don't even appreciate how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And so that salon, like that first barbershop or salon that you get into, like, be thoughtful about it. Like, get into a place that's going to like really help you grow.
Invest in you.
And yeah, exactly. And help you be the best version of a hairdresser or a barber that you can possibly be.
Yeah.
You know, and I think they have to have education.
Yeah.
Like if you get out and you're not getting regular education, like you're not growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just barely writing an article of the team asked me how to, they wanted me to write a culture building document. And I'm like, how do I put that in paper? You know, that's something I just teach in person. But as I'm like trying to put all my thoughts together, I'm thinking like, okay, well, what's my favorite book? Well, one of my favorite books is called Raving Fans, and it's how to build such a close relationship with your customer, guest, client, whatever, that they're your advertising, they're your word of mouth. And it was saying to build a high performing culture, you have to be able to provide them with education, like continuing education, and that's how you build a high performing culture inside of your company. And I thought that was so cool because like I do believe that to be true. Like I do think that not like, yes, you have to provide them with growth. Yes, you have to provide them with all these other things. But one of the things you for sure have to provide them with is education because people want to grow. And one of our core values is grow or die. So for me, that like really resonated with me.
Anybody die?
Yeah, when they stop growing, I tell them you're dying. That's exactly what I say. Okay, I want to hear like one last good story from you. What's like someone you fired? Like, tell me a good firing story.
Oh,
I know those are like the most intense, scary, worst things ever. Tell me a good one.
I think the worst thing about that one is that you never know who's listening.
Yeah.
And so I won't name names, but I'll just say that and I've learned a lot about this. First of all, I'll preface it by saying that like whenever a business owner lets somebody go, it's usually preceded by like nights and nights of like not sleeping, and like it's a really painful thing to do. And I think the only solace that comes to me in those moments when I have to do that is understanding that like I didn't make that decision for the person, like they made that decision.
Yeah.
But I also learned you don't do that in the middle of a work day.
Yeah.
And the way I learned that is I let an individual go. I won't even say guy or girl, let an individual go. And they immediately went out onto the floor and yelled, "Shep fired me," and then drove away giving me double birds. So
what did you do with their clients?
You
just moved them over?
I remember that. Like I was too caught up on the double birds.
And being yelled at in the middle of the floor.
It was kind of an awesome way to go out, I guess. Like, you know, in a blaze of glory.
In a blaze of glory.
So, you know, but I really like letting people go. That's something that I just like, I've never enjoyed. And I've never actually wanted to do.
It's the worst. I call it 72 hours of pain. Yeah. It's literally, it's 72 hours before you actually fire them of pain. And then 36 hours after that is what we call our 36 hours of pain, where you're just like, this freaking sucks. I hated this. Yeah. But I have had some crazy things happen when I've had to like let people go. I'm like, oh man, that did not go as easy as I thought it was going to be. You know, it's like either we're both in tears. I'm like, just kidding. Like, no. Actually, you really have to go. You have to go. Yeah. And so, well, I really appreciate you coming on this podcast. Have you ever even been on a podcast before?
I've done a couple of different things. We did like a news spot. I've been on like Studio 5?
For the news?
Yeah.
But I really get to capture you on your first like actual podcast, not a news.
This is my first, I think, official podcast.
Y'all remember that. I captured Shep for the very first podcast.
I kind of enjoyed it. So like if anybody wants to invite me onto one. I know how to talk.
Just know that I took the first one, though. Yeah. You can have this like the second, third, fourth, fifth, but I got that first one. Right. Okay, well, I really appreciate you like coming on here and just being like real and honest, and like your life is so cool and so interesting. Like make sure everyone really does follow Shep, and like you guys really should go to his place. Like it's a really unique place. He takes a ton of pride into it, and his wife Tracy does too. And stay tuned. You know, we'll maybe get Tracy on too, or maybe we'll see Shep again as well too. So thanks again for watching Trim Podcast, and thanks Shep for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks.